guys, welcome to another episode of the Just Casual Vlogs. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017, and I'm going to be talking about a requested subject from Gillians. I think that's his name. Gillians asked about what I thought about the longevity of Riot Games / League of Legends, and I think it's an interesting question. Don't really know how would you say it? What my credibility is to anything I'm saying, so this is purely just speculation and opinion. So yeah, we'll just see where this goes. So basically, I think that League of Legends is gonna last a while. I think it is at the core, it's a very good game, in the sense that, it emulates sports a lot, right? If you think about a 5v5 like basketball game, that is very similar to League of Legends. You know, you are scoring points on each end, which would be in League of Legends would be kind of like kills, objectives, getting the base. While in basketball, it goes back and forth through lots of shooting and points and steals, dribbles, fouls, all those kind of things. It's definitely different, but there's similar concepts to how the game flows. So I could totally see League staying alive for a long time. I think because Riot Games is behind it, unless big things happen to Riot Games, big changes, I really do believe Riot is made by gamers for gamers. And because of that, they actually care, and they have players maybe not in their best interest, which I think they do, but I'm also not going to be super jaded and ignorant about like it being a big company, and also a company that's been bought out by Tencent, that huge Chinese gaming company. But that being said, yeah, I think Riot has good intentions, and therefore that will carry them a very long way. And I mean, right now I can't imagine what a different kind of game that would sweep League out of the number one spot would be, but it would. I mean, that's because it hasn't been thought up of yet, or maybe it has, and maybe it hasn't been done right. You know, usually the first person to do something isn't always the best or the biggest. It's weird how that works. League of Legends is not the first of its game. It's a clone of clones of clones, and it's made specific changes, and you had the right people behind the game, and therefore it has made it very successful and very profitable, and like just a really great base behind it, good foundation on top of it. And you look at that because it was built off of basically Dota, Defense of the Ancients, which is a mod for Warcraft 3, I believe, and Will of the Ancients. I don't remember. Anyway, and then it became Dota, and then there was Han, and there was other games. But Riot was the first one to make their games free to play. You didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to pay for a monthly subscription. You didn't have to pay for a one-time fee. It was free. And that's like, whoa, that's crazy. Everyone loves free. So that's how Riot got going. And then they made money off of skins and stuff like that. And then not only that, they did things that weren't profitable, like building an esports franchise, or I shouldn't say franchise, but building an esports scene, and putting lots of money into it, and putting lots of talent into it, and really, really playing off the fact that they were finding people that really, really cared about the game, and that were gamers. And I think basically that core made League of Legends and Riot Games number one. And if they stay true to that, I think that's going to last for a very long time. You look at a game like StarCraft, which have a lot of intricacies to it, StarCraft 1, a lot of intricacies to it, and therefore a huge cult following. It was a very big game, and there was a ton of strategy, and the ceiling for the game it just kept going. So therefore, that lasted a while. Now you have a game like League of Legends where the ceiling is never met, because you never have time to hit the ceiling, because the game changes every 2 weeks, and that makes things spicy, you know. So that's the other thing that made League of Legends, that's another part of the formula that made League of Legends really, really successful. They're changing it up so often, and they're keeping things fresh. They're rotating what was like strong, And also, there was just new champions being played, so it changes the strategies. And therefore, like, no one can ever, like, just max min the game. They can't just be like, oh, this is the best thing to do, done. And it's funny, because if you look at international tournament, all these regions are like, this is the best way to do it, done. Because playoffs is usually done on one patch, so people have been playing on 7.5 or 7.6 or whatever patch they're on for a while, and everyone's finally min-maxed it. And then what ends up happening is that they go international, and everyone's like, no, this support is stronger, or no, this mid lane is stronger, or these things are stronger, this build is stronger, and then suddenly all these metas collide, and then everyone's like, wow, actually melee supports are really good, or like, hey, oh my gosh, this is actually good, or oh, this is actually bad because there's strong counters to it. And then during playoffs, the world playoffs or international playoffs, eventually by the end, there's a min-max, like, this is what's strong, this one isn't, which I also don't think is necessarily true. But no one wants to take the big risks in picking the risky things, or people aren't practiced enough to pick the risky counters that break the international stage meta, because it's just too risky. So, also, Riot Games has made a board game, which was amazing. It sold out the first batch. I don't think it sold out the second batch. So I don't know how popular that game is or how successful it was. But the board game, I played it. I own it. I played it. It was awesome. And I don't know how much replay value is in it, because I only played there's 10 campaigns. I only played the first 3, and I haven't picked it up since because I just haven't had the people or the time to play a board game. So, depending on the success of that just shows that Riot Games can do things. Riot Games bought a fighter platform game, or not a fighter platform. It might be a platformer. I'm not sure. It might be more like Street Fighter, or it might be more like Super Smash Bros. I don't remember, but I know there's a cooldown system, and who knows what happens, because that was like a year and a half ago when they bought it, and who knows what it'll be like now. So, Riot Games is actually making games, plural. So Riot might stay around for a while and make the next biggest thing. But, you know, Overwatch is a good contender, I think. I think Overwatch will continually grow bigger and bigger, and Blizzard is following the model of Riot, where they are investing a lot in the esports scene, while they're putting games into they're making sports venues globally, which is really cool. I don't know how that looks like, and I think the game that overtakes League of Legends is one that has a really quick games, easy to understand, but it's super deep. So one of the games that I think is like that is Rocket League. Rocket League is really easy to figure out what's going on. It's a game of soccer with rocket-powered RC cars. So it's like, oh, that's simple. You hit the ball into the goal. Everyone can relate to that because it's a spin-off of traditional sports. The thing is, the rounds last like 5 minutes. And realistically, with all the goals that might be made and overtime, I think a game of that lasts 8 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes or 6 minutes. And then they do like a best of 3 or whatever. So you can play 1v1, 2v2, 3v3s. I don't know where Rocket League is right now because I haven't played it in a long time, like maybe half a year now. But Rocket League, I think, is an amazing game that I don't know how its esports scene is going, but that's a really easy one to get into. I think the only downside of Rocket League is how do you do camera work for that? Because there's a lot of things going on. And I don't know if you want to just have a stationary camera like you do in basketball, but I'm sure camera work has gotten a lot better. I'm sure Psyonix is doing really well with Rocket League anyway. Also, Rocket League, like just like traditional sports, you have all these strategies and people play to their strengths so they can do crazy things. It might get old, but I think it's really crazy because it takes so much time to get better at the game, and it's never ending. You never hit a point where like, I am good, I've hit the best I can hit, or yeah. So that makes it really, really intriguing because people will always get better and better and better and better and better. And then new strategies, because someone's able to do this, suddenly new strategies are implemented. And then people are going to catch up and realize, oh, I can do that too. And I can actually one up that as younger talent comes around that are 14-year-olds that are like playing like crazy, right? So I think Rocket League's a good one because it's short, it's relatable, it's very easily understood, and therefore you can just jump into it very, very quickly. I think a game like that is what overtakes League when it does. I think a game like Overwatch, which is shorter, which is kind of easy to understand because people are just shooting at each other. There's different champions, so that makes things a little harder to understand, but also more interesting. I mean, CSGO is pretty big too. I don't know what the numbers are, but it hasn't overtaken League. I don't know if it's growing, or I don't know what the numbers are, but I don't think it's anywhere close to League. League has 100 million unique active daily users, or monthly users or something. It's ridiculous. While a lot of these games are like, oh, we hit 10 million like users, not just like monthly. So I think League will last at least another 10 years. I really do think that, because it's the crazy thing about it is that it's finally getting its footing and it's becoming legitimized. It's starting to franchise. People are getting actual careers. People are going to have a little more security, even though performance-based security is always tough. But with franchising, it might make things easier. I think that the whole idea of you being too old to play the game is going to start to dwindle more, and I think you'll see more like 28-year-olds playing and maybe 30-year-olds playing, because honestly, the mechanics, you keep that up. They can deteriorate over time if you don't exercise them. So I think you're going to have a lot more backing, and as these older people get older and retire, they're going to be much better coaches, and they're going to understand the game better. And Riot's going to make the appropriate changes to facilitate that. Maybe they will have less patches, but maybe each patch is huge. Maybe it's like 4 big patches throughout the year that just completely change up the game, and that's what makes it fresh. And maybe they split it up into 4 seasons, so then people can like sprint and take a break, and sprint and take a break, right? And more salaries are going to be involved, so that means there might be better health. I think Riot's going to implement like training modes that are going to be better and better for teams, where they're working on that chrono break technology or whatever it's called to like rewind games. I think that's going to be huge, because spamming solo queue games is not the best form of practice, because there's a lot of wait time for the pros. There's a lot of you have to play a whole 40-minute game to get into another one, where you might not learn as much when you're trying to focus on X, Y, and Z. Scrims are not that great, and I think if you make something like training mode, where you can have sister teams scrimming against each other, or people can be 2v2ing and testing out these macro concepts and like working together to like really train specific things, suddenly you're gonna have people that only have to train 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day for 5 days a week, and actually have a life outside of gaming. And you have a better work-life balance that way. It's going to make the scene more sustainable, and with all the extra income, you're going to have more support structure too, more support staff. And as we learn how to do things, people quit because they need to make a living. They need to go back to school and all that kind of stuff, these players. And suddenly you have a nice support structure where people have some benefits and they can live nicely, and they have a future outside of gaming after the 1.5 years they're in it, and then they fizzle. They might be able to like invest better and understand, and then there's less burnout, like all these things. And even just like working together as a team, like how do you work together? One of the big things is right now is in traditional sports, you have players playing basketball, let's say, and they've been playing basketball since middle school, or they've been playing basketball since they were 5, and they go to a rec league and they play at their Parks and Recs department or whatever, in the local gymnasium or the rec center. So they're used to that kind of like competitive environment, right, where you get exposed to people. And then you go, if you're good in high school and you hear people talk crappy about you, how you missed the game-winning shot, you deal with all that stuff. You deal with the popularity and the extra fame. And then if you're good enough, you go to college. So then you have another 3 to 5 years where you're under the heat, under the pressure, learning how to train, learning how to deal with a professional environment with coaches and all this kind of stuff. And then you go into the big leagues for another 2 to 25 years, depending on the sport or whatever. And you get used to that, and you get used to that environment, and you get used to the flame and the toxicity that people provide. Esports, you play solo queue in your own house, in your own privacy. Maybe you stream, maybe you deal with toxic people on League, and maybe people hate you on Reddit for a little bit, but then you become pro, and you're 16 or 17 or 18, and suddenly millions of people know your name. If you're a big, like, Bjergsen level, then you have, 500 million people around the globe that know your name. And every time you make a mistake, 75% of those people are tweeting you, giving you death threats, and, like, all that kind of stuff is really difficult to learn in a very short amount of time. Versus a traditional sports athlete, they deal with it since they're like 5 or 16, and they're dealing with it at a gradual increase up to like college and professional. So I think that's another thing that really affects professional esports players, and I think some of those issues will be solved and will help the scene stay healthy. As long as the scene stays healthy, as long as Riot stays good and pure in their intent, I think League is around for a long, long time. Alright. Tell me what you think. How long do you think League is going to last? What do you think about Riot? Do you think they are money-hungry savages, or do you actually think they're good people? I like Riot. Comment, like, subscribe. See you guys.